Warning, the following review for Lobo-Portrait of a Basitch is a mature reader's comic. While any nudity has been edited out, the book still contains graphic violence, sacrilegious imagery, and atrocious grammar. Viewer discretion is advised. In early 1983, readers of the spacefaring DC teen comic, The Omega Men, were introduced to a ghastly white, red-eyed, super strong mercenary-slash-bounty hunter named Lobo. Originally depicted as a resident of the extinct planet Valorpia, Lobo would eventually be revealed to be the survivor of a different dead race, the Zarnians. The Zarnians were wiped out by an infestation of genetically engineered flying scorpions that Lobo created and unleashed after receiving a bad grade in biology class. Lobo would eventually outgrow his origins in Omega Man, where he was usually depicted as a bad guy, and become more of an anti-hero, eventually receiving his own book in the early 90s. The book would serve as a skewering of the grim and gritty comics of the early 90s, running over just over 5 years. Lobo would prove to be so popular that he would guest star in Superman the Animated Series, where he was voiced by Emmy Award-winning actor Brad Garrett of Everybody Loves Raymond.
The name's Lobo. That's L as in lacerate, O as in obliterate, B as in disembowel, and O as in I guess I can use obliterate twice, huh? What do you think?
I know what you're thinking, and yes, it does sound a lot like Hulk Hogan. Mainly because Brad Garrett also voiced Hulk Hogan in the rock and wrestling cartoon from the 1980s.
Who's the number one dude running for mayor? John! And who's the number one crook we're gonna run out of town? Help!
To explain Lobo's popularity, one need look no further than his creator, Keith Giffen. Giffen started out as an artist at Marvel, most notably co-creating the character Rocket Raccoon. After that, he moved to DC with a lengthy run on the Legion of Superheroes, which included that book's most famous story, The Great Darkness Saga. In the late 1980s, Giffen moved to writing, teaming with co-writer J.M. DeMatteis and artist Kevin McGuire to revitalize the Justice League as a humor book to both critical and fan acclaim. Giffen has worked into the present day with contributions to DC events like 52, as well as the revitalization of Marvel Comics' Cosmic Heroes with the various Annihilation events. Giffen has also had some independent work that we've even covered on this show when we did Planetary Brigade. Anyway, today we're looking at Giffen's contribution to Lobo's early adventures with two combination miniseries that were put into one collection. This is Lobo, Portrait of a Basitch. Lobo has been having a hard time of late. He hasn't had any job offers, and someone published an unauthorized book detailing his exploits on Zarnia. However, his job situation clears up when he's contacted by Vril Dox of the Licensed Extra-Government Interstellar Operations Network, or Legion. Dox tasks Lobo with picking up a wanted prisoner and turning the individual over to Legion custody alive. Lobo arrives on the planet Oneida 6, where the prison warden explains that the prisoner committed the high crime of torturing the leader's son by flunking him. Lobo is shocked to discover that said prisoner is the last person he'd ever expect to see again. It's another Zarnian, and to top it all off, it's Miss Trib, the teacher whose failing grade drove Lobo to obliterate his homeworld, and who also happens to be the author of the unauthorized Lobo biography. Lobo immediately contacts Dox to berate him over this task, but the Legion head just reminds him that Trib is to be delivered alive. However, it turns out that Lobo's not the only enemy Trib has. She has incurred the wrath of the Legion of Decency, thanks to the salacious nature of her Lobo book. They immediately dispatch their militant SWAT unit to bring Trib into justice. The book has also enraged a biker gang who consider themselves to be disciples of Lobo and can't believe anyone would disparage the main man. Lobo takes off on his interstellar motorcycle with Trib holding on and correcting his grammar the whole time. The two stop off for a bite to eat at a truck stop, where Trib insults a group of truckers. This causes a fight to break out, and Lobo is forced to clear house and then take Trib, but the remaining truckers have sworn vengeance as well. The two make their way to another planet where Lobo pays one of the locals to watch Trib while he makes another call. After getting the runaround from Docs once more, Lobo returns to find Trib and the local missing, though they did leave a note which Lobo didn't see. Lobo tracks Trib and her sitter to the local ballet. He storms into the dance hall, stopping only to admire the dance troupe. And by dance troupe, I mean battle reenactors. Lobo leaps off a balcony and kills the sitter, which earns an ovation from the audience. Angry at being upstaged, the ballet fighters come after Lobo, only for the main man to take them down rather easily. Before taking off, Lobo takes out an insurance policy on Trib by amputating her legs. Doc's said to leave her alive, not unharmed. As they leave, Lobo and Trib are being tracked by the dance fighters, the space truckers, the disciples of Lobo, the Legion of Decency SWAT unit, and the police force from Oneida 6 after Lobo killed their sheriff off screen. And this is all going to Doc's plan. Doc's plan? Well, it's to have Lobo and his disciples gather in the same place as their adversaries and have one of two scenarios play out. Either Lobo kills everyone, or everyone kills Lobo. Anyway, Legion would then step in at the last minute and restore peace and order, looking like the ultimate good guys. But what exactly are Legion? Well, like I said before, Legion is an acronym for Licensed Extragovernmental Interstellar Operation Network. Basically, they're kind of a cosmic FBI that works with law enforcement agencies to maintain peace and order throughout the galaxy. And in case you're wondering, no, outside of a couple of things, I really can't find any other connection to the Legion of superheroes. As for Legion's leader, Vril Dox, well, he's actually a clone of the Superman villain Brainiac, and, okay, yeah. Most television depictions of Brainiac usually have him as a Kryptonian artificial intelligence that contributed to the destruction of the planet. But in the comics, Brainiac is actually a citizen of a planet called Kolu. And, like I said, Vril is actually a clone of him. And unlike his villainous progenitor, Vril Dox is a manipulator, but he usually tends to come down more on the side of good, at least trying to make himself look good and not to the destruction of anything else. Anyway, as to his plan, there's just one little problem that's popped up. Lobo has vanished from Legion scanners, leaving Dox irate and wondering how the main man and his charge have disappeared. Meanwhile, the disciples spot the armada of space truckers, but they prefer to let Lobo land the first blow. As for Lobo and Trib, they're stuck on a planet after the cosmic motorcycle had a run with a starship, and this resulted in the two of them being placed in protective custody. It's then that their captors reveal themselves as the Orthography Commandos, a group hell-bent on ridding the universe of the stupid. Separating the wheat from the chaff will be done in a spelling bee to the death. The rules are rather strictly enforced as the first contestant gets killed for using in the middle of his word. This reinforces Trib's fears as she knows Lobo doesn't stand much of a chance. However, Lobo manages to pass through the semifinals because he keeps getting his favorite words, like genocide and mutilation. Knowing that he's going up against the defending champion, Lobo cheats to get that guy eliminated and then points out that Trib is a teacher. This only results in Lobo getting bound and gagged for crimes against education. So Lobo breaks free and begins taking down the orthographers. He then grabs Trib and takes off on the cosmic motorcycle. Lobo then contacts Dox, who's still irate over the delay. But Lobo points out that with everything he's been through, he needs a break on the vacation planet Revel 7. Lobo hangs up and Dox realizes that the call was insecure, meaning that the otherwise peaceful planet is about to be attacked. Lobo kicks back with a year's supply of Mai Tais, but bores rather quickly. So he hangs Trib on a coat hook in the men's room and goes to make another phone call. Or should I say public broadcast, threatening to kill everyone in Revel 7 in 5 hours. When word gets back to Dox, he is not amused. Tourists on Revel 7 begin flooding towards the exits and the escape vessels. Lobo, meanwhile, kicks back and takes in all the anarchy. Meanwhile, the Legion of Decency arrives along with the space truckers. As they approach, the 5 hours hit zero. Meanwhile, the Legion of Decency's ship touched down in Revel 7's red light district. The old ladies decide to put Lobo on the back burner and instead open fire on the houses of debauchery. As this is happening, the Pan-Galactic Dance Company, aka the ballet troopers, begin their approach, only to smash headfirst into the planetary escape vessels. Hell sufficiently raised, Lobo grabs Trib and races off on his cosmic motorcycle, where he's immediately greeted by Legion forces. Lobo delivers Trib to Dox, who naturally is not happy about anything, including the leg amputation. Still, Dox takes her into custody, as per the agreement, and the delivery is now complete. With that, Lobo snaps Trib's neck, pointing out that since the job is done, Trib doesn't have to be kept alive anymore.
So ends the first 4-issue miniseries of Lobo's adventures. However, the main man would return in a series titled appropriately enough, Lobo's Back.
Lobo discovers his finances are not what they should be, so he takes up a side job as a bail bondsman with an old friend named Ramona. Ramona has had some problems with previous employees, namely that they've all been killed by the same person. Lobo takes up the job and is dispatched to the planet of Dooley 7 to catch a criminal named Lou. Lobo gets some information on Lou's location from a group of small bounty hunters. However, the group's incessant rhyming drives them to kill them before they can complete the exchange. This allows for someone to contact Lou, and Lou arrives, destroying the bar in the process and squaring off with Lobo. Lobo and Lou both empty their firearms and resort to knife fighting. The two seem pretty evenly matched until Lou plays a trump card in the form of Feces, Lou's malformed conjoined twin.
Meanwhile, I am starting to have flashbacks to the movie Basket Case.
Feces opens fire with a gun, hitting Lobo enough times to split the main man in two. Lobo is dead. Lobo arrives in the afterlife, where he finds out they have to wait an additional 42 years in purgatory to find out where it will be sent. So Lobo begins taking out the souls in front of them, which alerts the higher-ups to his presence. Lobo gets fast-tracked, and St. Peter, I think, as he's not properly introduced, hops on the hotline to Hell, but Lobo has made such a racket that even Hell doesn't want him now. So Lobo requests to be sent back to the land of the living. Peter points out that reincarnation is out of the question, and instead Lobo will just stay in heaven. Lobo proceeds to wreck paradise to the point that Peter is forced to make a compromise with Hell to take the main man on a trial basis. The demon Etrigan arrives to pick Lobo up. However, Eternal Damnation proves to be enjoyable and thus defeats the purpose, so Peter is forced to acquiesce to Lobo's demand and schedules him for reincarnation. Peter tries to explain to Lobo that this doesn't mean that he'll necessarily be sent back to Dooley 7, but Lobo really isn't listening and gets reincarnated. Lobo is reborn, but he's not on Dooley 7. In fact, he's on Earth, in World War II, and he's a woman.
I'm not sure that's how reincarnation is supposed to work. I believe you're supposed to be born anew, which means Lobo should be a baby, not fully grown with a mysteriously jacked up left arm. Also, why was Lobo born with lingerie? I mean, this is a mature reader's comic that already had nudity in it. What was more really going to hurt? And also, what is it with Keith Giffen and transgender jokes?
Lobo begins raising hell at a local tavern until she notices a bombing run by the Luftwaffe. Intending to charge head-on and get sent back to the afterlife, Lobo is halted by General Glory and his sidekick, Ernie Ladd. Lobo takes on the two until she gets punched into the path of a British shell and is killed automatically. Back in the afterlife, Lobo storms back into St. Peter's office and demands to be returned to Dooley 7. Peter points out that Lobo's threats are hollow as everyone here is already dead. Lobo responds by kicking Peter so hard that his spine pops out of his back.
I'd also like to point out I have no idea why from this point on St. Peter's face slowly melts into a strange tentacle creature.
Lobo gets immediately dispatched to the Reincarnation Division once more. Unfortunately, he remains in line for another 12 years because the person in front of him can't decide on what breed of dog she wants to come back as. Or maybe to just come back as a cat instead. Lobo begins making such a racket that Peter has his case expedited, and Lobo is reincarnated on Dooley 7 as per his request. Except there turned out to be a tiny glitch in the computer, and Lobo has been brought back as a squirrel. Lobo stomps off, intending to find a new way back to the afterlife, which he soon finds he gets crushed by, of all things, the top half of his corpse. Sick of what he perceives to be heaven's practical jokes, Lobo storms the poorly gates once more, and this time, though, St. Peter has some things waiting for Lobo. Lobo is undeterred, though, and begins going through heaven's forces like a hot knife through butter. Finally, Peter has had enough and initiates a protocol that will ensure that Lobo never, ever comes back. Lobo is blasted with the reincarnation gun once more. This time, though, he gets what he wants, and he is immediately returned to his body shortly after his first death. Lobo's torso pops up and plunges a knife into Lou's head. Lobo then blows Feces away with a gun. Lobo then picks up his legs and moves off to get it stitched back together. We then find out that the protocol that St. Peter initiated is now that Lobo is considered to be immortal.
And so ends Lobo, Portrait of a Basitch. How was it? Well, I loved the first miniseries. I loved the wacky, zany, madcap nature of it all. I loved the banter between Lobo and Trib, Lobo and Dox. I love all the enemies Lobo makes along the way and them coming after him. I love Dox getting increasingly frustrated with Lobo. It's really well done. Unfortunately, then we hit the second miniseries, and Well, that's not so good. I mean, it's way too bloated. This is a 2-issue miniseries. For some reason, it was a 4-issue one. It's really repetitive, too. It's Lobo dies, goes to heaven, wreaks havoc, gets reincarnated, wash, rinse, repeat. Also, the coloring in the second miniseries is really bad. I can't tell what's going on. It's so muggy. I mean, I get that they're trying to parody the grim and gritty comics, but I think they went a little too gritty. Also, again, the transgender joke, it just... Yeah, I mean, I get it was the early 90s. You could kind of get away with that stuff a little bit more, but it's just, again, like I said, this is the second time a transgender joke has popped up in a Keith Giffen comic I reviewed. Yeah, it's just kind of exasperating. Anyway, I can't say I really hated this. I mean, there were enjoyable points in it, but I can't fully recommend this unless you're really, really interested in Lobo. And that's why I'm going to give it a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review. Remember, you can help support my work at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions, where you can request a trade to be placed in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box.